Welcome to episode 15 in the Accident Theory series. In previous episodes, we learned that hazard identification tools are systematic methods used to identify conditions or situations that could lead to accidents or other unwanted outcomes, helping organizations proactively manage risk. One important tool is fault tree analysis, which examines a specific undesired outcome, called the top event, and works backward to identify and organize the factors that could cause it. Using a visual tree-like structure, fault tree analysis shows how different events or conditions interact and combine to produce failures. In today's episode, we will be looking at list models. We will start by reviewing the classic cause list. We will then look at tripod lists. We will then look at a very specific list model referred to as the Human Factors Analysis and Classification System. We will end the episode with a look at how lists models can change from theory to practice. There are many ways to present lists of factors that contribute to incidents. At their simplest, these lists may consist of an unstructured collection of individual factors. At their most developed, the factors are organized and grouped in a way that reflects an underlying logic, framework, or theory. Most lists are not intended to be fully comprehensive. Instead, they are designed to act as prompts or reminders, pointing the user toward broad categories of issues that should be considered during an investigation or analysis. Once a category is identified, the user is expected to rely on their own knowledge, experience, and judgment to explore the specific details within that category. This approach assumes that the person using the list has a level of expertise similar to that of the person who created it. If this assumption does not hold, either because the user has less experience or a different background, the list may fail to achieve its purpose. A keyword or category label may not trigger the intended line of thinking, and important contributing factors may be overlooked. Many early accident reporting systems relied on simple lists of causes to explain what went wrong. These systems often categorized events into immediate causes, basic causes, and root causes. However, these categories frequently failed to support meaningful accident prevention. So-called immediate causes usually describe the cause of the injury itself, such as contact with an object or exposure to a hazard, rather than the causes of the accident that created the conditions for the injury to occur. Despite this limitation, these injury-focused causes are still commonly recorded in modern accident and incident databases. From a prevention perspective, information about immediate causes offers little value because it does not explain why the hazardous situation existed in the first place. The next category, basic causes, often relies on terms such as unsafe acts or incorrect behavior. These labels can appear judgmental and may implicitly place blame on individuals. Even when blame is not the intention, simply noting that something was unsafe or incorrect does not explain why the behavior occurred or what system conditions influenced it, making the information of limited use. Similarly, root causes in these systems are often vaguely defined and inconsistently applied. They may point to broad concepts such as lack of training or poor supervision without clearly linking them to specific actions or system weaknesses. As a result, they provide little practical guidance on how prevention should be achieved or what changes would meaningfully reduce future risk. Because accident databases filled with this type of information do not support deep understanding or effective intervention, they have driven the search for more structured and analytical approaches to accident investigation. These newer approaches aim to move beyond simple lists and labels, focusing instead on how multiple interacting factors within systems contribute to accidents and how those factors can be addressed to prevent recurrence. Think of a time when you made a mistake at work or had a near miss. Did you initially explain it by blaming an immediate cause or a person's actions? Or did you consider the deeper conditions and system factors that made it possible? Share your thoughts in this episode's group chat or in the comment section if you are following on social media. The tripod list model is based on a diagrammatic representation of accident causation that is often compared to a domino-style model, where failures occur in a sequence and eventually lead to an accident. As a classification system, tripod relies on a predefined list of 11 general failure types that are intended to represent common weaknesses within organizational and technical systems. These general failure types include design, hardware, procedures, error-enforcing conditions, housekeeping, training, incompatible goals, communication, organization, maintenance management, and defenses. In practice, tripod analysis uses a structured proximal questionnaire system consisting of approximately 50 questions distributed across the 11 general failure types. These questions focus on conditions or factors that were present close in time or space to the accident. When a proximal factor is identified, the analyst is directed to a related set of distal questions, which examine deeper, underlying organizational or system-level influences. The distal questionnaire contains about 60 questions in total and is intended to help trace surface-level issues back to more fundamental causes. Tripod is most effectively used after information has already been collected through interviews, observations, or other investigation methods. The GFT categories are intentionally broad, which makes them poorly suited for guiding or structuring an investigation from the outset. Instead, they function better as a framework for organizing and classifying findings once the facts are known. Although the tripod method is often described as producing consistent classifications, this consistency may depend heavily on the background, experience, and perspective of the analysts involved. Categories such as communication, incompatible goals, and organization are especially open to interpretation and may vary depending on who is doing the analysis. Despite these limitations, tripod offers value as a standardized approach to data capture and classification. When used consistently across many investigations, it can help identify recurring patterns and common contributing factors within an organization. However, this strength also implies a limitation. Meaningful insights often emerge only after a sufficient number of accidents or incidents have been recorded. In other words, tripod supports learning through aggregation over time, rather than providing immediate case-specific guidance for prevention following a single event. The Human Factors Analysis and Classification System is a structured list-based accident analysis framework that was originally developed for the aviation industry and later adapted for use in sectors such as healthcare, mining, oil and gas, rail, construction, and manufacturing. Its primary purpose is to provide a consistent way to classify human and organizational factors that contribute to accidents, particularly in complex, high-risk systems. HFACS is built around a multi-level structure that reflects the idea that unsafe actions at the operational level are shaped by conditions, supervision, and organizational decisions. At the most visible level are unsafe acts, which include errors and violations committed by frontline operators. These acts are not treated as isolated mistakes, but as outcomes influenced by broader conditions. Errors may involve skill-based slips, decision-making failures, or perceptual errors, while violations may be routine or exceptional departures from rules and procedures. Below this level are the preconditions for unsafe acts. This category captures the factors that shape how people perform their work, such as environmental conditions, fatigue, stress, workload, equipment design, and team dynamics. It also includes issues related to communication, coordination, and individual readiness for duty. By explicitly recognizing these influences, HFACS moves beyond simple blame and begins to explain why unsafe acts made sense to the person at the time. The next level, unsafe supervision, focuses on how supervisory practices contribute to risk. This includes inadequate supervision, failure to correct known problems, inappropriate operational planning, and supervisory violations. This layer acknowledges that frontline performance is strongly affected by how work is assigned, monitored, and supported by those in leadership roles. At the highest level are organizational influences, which include resource management, organizational climate, and organizational processes. These factors reflect strategic decisions, policies, priorities, and cultural norms that shape the entire system. Budget constraints, staffing levels, production pressures, training systems, and safety culture all fall within this category. HVACS recognizes that these high-level influences often create the conditions in which unsafe supervision and unsafe acts become more likely. However, HVACS still has important limitations. It is primarily a classification system rather than an investigative method. In most applications, information about an accident is gathered first through interviews, reports, and observations, and HVACS is then used to sort that information into predefined categories. As a result, it does not guide investigators on what questions to ask, what evidence to seek, or how different factors interact dynamically over time. The quality of the analysis therefore depends heavily on the quality of the initial investigation and the experience of the person applying the framework. List models in occupational health and safety take many forms, each reflecting a different way of organizing knowledge about hazards, failures, and accidents. While earlier list models focused narrowly on individual actions or conditions, later approaches began to incorporate broader system influences, task structure, physical mechanisms of harm, and regulatory expectations. These models are widely used in practice because they are accessible, repeatable, and relatively easy to apply across many situations. Swiss cheese model lists organize accident contributors into layered categories such as organizational influences, supervisory factors, preconditions for work, and active failures. Instead of analyzing specific barriers in depth, many investigations use simplified lists aligned with these layers to classify what went wrong. These lists are important to accident theory because they reinforce the idea that accidents are not caused by a single failure, but by the alignment of multiple weaknesses across different system levels. They help shift thinking away from individual blame and toward understanding how latent conditions and active failures combine to produce accidents. JSA and JHA lists break work down into individual steps and identify hazards and controls at each stage. They are highly practical tools used to prevent accidents by addressing risks at the task level before work begins. In accident theory, their importance lies in showing how hazards emerge during normal work activities and how local conditions influence outcomes. However, they also highlight a limitation in many safety approaches. By focusing on tasks in isolation, they often miss broader organizational design and management factors that shape how work is actually performed. Energy-based hazard lists classify risks according to sources of harmful energy, such as mechanical, electrical, thermal, chemical, or gravitational energy. These lists are especially useful for identifying physical hazards and selecting appropriate engineering or administrative controls. From an accident theory perspective, they are important because they connect injury mechanisms to fundamental physical principles, helping explain how harm occurs. At the same time, their limitations illustrate that understanding injury mechanisms alone is not enough to explain why accidents happen, since they do not address decision-making, organizational pressures, or system interactions. These checklists are derived from laws, regulations, standards, and codes of practice, and are widely used to ensure consistency and legal compliance. They play an important role in establishing minimum safety expectations and reducing known well-documented risks. In accident theory, they are significant because they demonstrate how safety knowledge becomes formalized and institutionalized over time. However, they also reveal a key challenge in accident prevention. Compliance with rules does not guarantee safety, especially in complex systems where new, unexpected, or interacting risks may fall outside existing standards. Taken together, these list models are important to accident theory because they show how different ways of organizing knowledge influence how accidents are understood, explained, and prevented. They help clarify both the strengths and the limitations of list-based thinking, reinforcing the need for more integrated and system-oriented approaches when dealing with complex accidents. In episode 15, we looked at simple cause lists in accident theory. We discussed how lists are used to categorize causes and contributing factors in an incident. Lists of contributing factors can range from simple, unstructured collections to more organized models based on an underlying logic or theory. Most list models are not intended to be complete explanations of accidents, but prompts that guide attention toward broad categories of concern. Effective use of lists assumes the user has sufficient expertise to interpret categories and explore relevant details beyond the list itself. When user expertise differs from that of the list designer, key contributing factors may be missed because category labels fail to trigger appropriate lines of inquiry. Immediate causes usually describe how an injury occurred rather than why the accident conditions existed, limiting their value for prevention. Basic causes, such as unsafe acts or incorrect behavior, often appear judgmental and provide little insight into system or contextual influences. Root causes in classic lists are frequently vague and inconsistently applied, offering limited guidance for effective preventive action. The shortcomings of traditional cause lists motivated the development of more structured and analytical accident investigation approaches. The tripod list model classifies accident contributors using 11 broad general failure types representing organizational and technical weaknesses. Tripod is most effective as a post-investigation classification tool rather than as a method for guiding the investigation itself. Because tripod categories are broad and interpretive, classification consistency may depend heavily on the analyst's background and perspective. Tripod supports learning through aggregation across many incidents, rather than providing immediate prevention guidance from a single event. HFACS extends list-based thinking by organizing contributing factors across multiple system levels, from unsafe acts to organizational influences. COHSI provides its students with a multiple-choice quiz at the end of each episode, which can be used as practice material for the content that has been covered. A free version of the quiz can be accessed by anyone following our content on social media by using the QR code shown on the screen. If you are a COHSI student, please complete the discussion board topics found throughout this unit, as well as the episode quiz. Both of these tasks can be found under their appropriate tabs in your learning portal. If you have any questions or concerns, please reach out to your course instructor. Thank you for watching and have a safe day.